Nagasaki in southwest Japan. An area that is home to over 130 Catholic churches and 1 in 7 of Japan's Catholics. These churches offer a window on a remarkable history of forbidden faith. In Japan, Christianity was banned for 250 years. Many suffered martyrdom. The faithful practiced their rituals in secret. They became known as hidden Christians.
It's the story of the hidden Christians that has brought me here to Nagasaki.
昔の道でですね、隠れキリシタンの人たちの墓地ができています。アベマリブラジャケンなどメレンプレットツイが今いい税金じゃなれ、黒ツイで。
Wow, you can imagine what kind of an existence it must have been for the people who lived in here, though. Huh. Nagasaki Prefecture has about 1% of Japan's population, but 14% of its Catholic churches. Many of the churches are in remote locations. The long ban on Christianity was lifted in 1874, soon after Japan set out on the path to modernization. These churches date from around that time. Their construction marked the end of a difficult time in history. In 2018, UNESCO added the hidden Christian sites in the Nagasaki region to its World Heritage List. This church was built in 1882 by former hidden Christians with the help of a French priest. It incorporated a vocational training facility for women. Driven to the fringes of society, hidden Christians were extremely poor. The church here helped to rehabilitate them. These days, Catholic nuns maintain the church and educate visitors about it.
This piece of machinery was used to slice sweet potatoes. They did weaving, they made noodles, bread, macaroni, soy sauce, and miso. They pressed oils, processed teas, dyed cloth. They did lots of things.
Okay. So it's just a whole kind of local industry all in one building.
Yes, indeed.
Wow, it's quite impressive, isn't it? Oh. In another room is a harmonium, brought here by the French priest.
This harmonium was just perfect. Music was an answer to the congregation's prayers. They had been pestering Father Desraux to teach them some hymns. They wanted to sing out loud at last and express their faith.
For the accompaniment.
Yes.
I see. The harmonium is still in use today, accompanying members of the parish as they sing hymns. Although life is much easier now, the church continues to be a pillar of the local community and a source of spiritual strength.
A new day dawns at last, after a long, dark night.
In the centuries before the churches were built, Christians had endured cruel oppression. In the mid-1500s, Nagasaki was enjoying flourishing international trade as one of Japan's leading ports. In 1549, European Jesuits brought Christianity to Japan, and the Catholic faith quickly put down roots. Estimates indicate that within 50 years there were 300,000 Christians in Japan. But then came a crackdown. On this spot, 26 Christians, including 3 young boys, were martyred, crucified and then stabbed with spears. At a museum dedicated to the martyrs, I'm going to speak with a young British researcher.
Hi, Peter. Welcome to the museum. This is the 26 Martyrs Museum.
Yep.
And should we go inside?
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I guess the first thing I want to ask you about is how Christianity came to be banned in Japan and the reasons for it. I gather it's a little more complex than one first thinks, as many things are.
One of the big dramatic moments was in 1597 when 26 Christians were crucified here on this hill in Nagasaki.
Right.
And then the next sort of major turning point is I would say 1614. That's when you have a new ban issued by the Tokugawa shogunate. And this time they really mean business. 1614 is a huge turning point. Everything changes after that date. So if you're a Christian, you have to do something. Either you can be a martyr, give up your faith, fight back, you may be exiled to another country. And the final possibility is, of course, secrecy. So you can continue your faith in secret, as is what happened with the hidden Christians.
Right. What was the main reason for banning Christianity?
And I think it's true to say that the rulers of Japan became increasingly wary of the Christian missionaries and indeed of the influence from Spain and Portugal, and started to perhaps worry that Spain and Portugal may increase their influence and eventually perhaps take over.
Christians were subjected to brutal treatment. The authorities would place one of these on the ground, a fumie, literally a treading picture, either of Jesus or Mary. People were instructed to step on the image. Anyone who refused to do so was assumed to be a Christian. In Nagasaki, everyone was required to step on a fumie at the beginning of each year.
One of the interesting things is you can see the face of Christ is totally smoothed over, so you can't make out his facial expressions.
So that's done on purpose?
Well, yes, because it would have been trampled on so many times. So gradually the fumie becomes smoother and smoother. And there's a very poignant story of a group or a couple of groups of Christians on the Goto Islands and one or two other places, I think, who after stamping on the fumie, what they would do is they would return home and they would remove their sandals.
Yeah.
They would then burn their sandals, mix the ash with water, and then drink the mixture and beg Deus, God, for forgiveness for this wicked, wicked act. In their eyes, no better than, well, it was apostasy.
Wow.
So there's a real paradox there, that they were sinning, if you like, and it was, I would say it was a necessary sin. They were sinning in order to continue their faith, which is a very difficult idea.
Many Christians who refused to abandon their faith dispersed to remote locations. About an hour's drive northwest of central Nagasaki is a place called Sotome. Cliffs and rugged mountains made this area hard to reach, and therefore a bit safer for the local Christians. Takaharu Matsukawa is a descendant of hidden Christians. He knows about the religious practices that his ancestors did their best to keep secret.
Up this trail to the left.
Oh, up here. Okay.
This is an old path.
Oh. He says that believers went deep into these woods to practice their faith.
This place is quite isolated, a long way from the local community.
Hidden Christians came to this forest retreat to pass on their faith in secret.
You couldn't say your prayers out loud. If you were exposed as a Christian, you'd be arrested and tortured. So instead, you would mutter the words under your breath. In order to teach the words to your children or grandchildren, you'd need to practice. And you could do that here, under this slab of rock.
Wow. As a child, Takaharu learned a secret prayer called the Orasho. He recites it for me.
When you recite the Orasho, you're supposed to cross your thumbs like this. That makes the shape of the cross. And then you'd start your prayer.
Ave Maria Barashakena Romerek Pertuyo Imono Igris Erikinjano Naret Guru Tsubeke Zezus Santa Maria Virgo Jamaten Gengin Tonri Nankim Mondra Amen. Ave Maria Barashakena Romerek Pertuyo Imono Igris Erikinjano Naret Guru Tsubeke Zezus Santa Maria Virgo Jamaten Gengin Tonri Nankim Mondra Amen. Ave Maria Barashakena Romerek Pertuyo Imono Igris Erikinjano Naret Guru Tsubeke Zezus Santa Maria Virgo Jamaten Gengin Tonri Nankim Mondra Amen.
It's a unique prayer containing elements of Latin and Japanese. Next, Takaharu takes me to the place where his ancestors were buried.
This is a grave that doesn't look like a grave.
If there had been any inscription, the authorities would have destroyed it. While the ban on Christianity was in force, anything Christian was eradicated. If a Christian grave was discovered, the authorities would dig up the remains and throw them in the sea.
What are the little stones on top?
The stones are placed here to serve a particular purpose.
Ah.
You arrange them into a cross, and then you pray. After you finish, you jumble the stones up again so there's no trace of any Christian association. When I was a boy, we learned that this was the way to pay respects at a grave. I believe this custom was passed down from the era of the hidden Christians.
Ave Maria Barashakena Romerek Pertuyo Imono Igris Erikinjano Naret Guru Tsubeke Zezus Santa Maria Gengin Tonri Nankim Mondra Amen. Ave Maria Barashakena Romerek Pertuyo Imono Igris Erikinjano Naret Gengin Tonri Nankim Mondra Amen.
Now I'm off to another location where hidden Christians once worshipped. Surprisingly, it's a 330-year-old Zen Buddhist temple.
Gomen kudasai. Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
This is the altar of the main worship hall.
The statue in the middle is of the historical Buddha. That is the chief image for our sect of Buddhism.
Of course.
And to its right is a statue called Maria Kannon.
Hidden Christians use this statue of the Buddhist deity Kannon as a stand-in for the Virgin Mary. Buddhist temples back then were helping the authorities with their religious crackdown. This place was a remarkable exception.
At a time when persecution was especially intense, I'm told that the hidden Christians came to this temple and asked for their Maria Kannon to be looked after.
Why was it that the Christians brought the statue to this temple in particular?
Well, the Christians may have had their own distinct beliefs, but this Buddhist temple had a long history of sheltering hidden Christians.
Didn't that put the temple and the Buddhist priests who worked here in danger if they were disobeying the authorities?
Absolutely. They were risking their lives.
The exceptional courage of the Buddhists here made it possible for the local Christians to worship with some peace of mind.
Christians regarded the Virgin Mary as the source of life. Kannon is not actually male or female, but this bodhisattva has a motherly appeal. And so Kannon came to be regarded as the Buddhist figure closest to what they were seeking. Life is passed down to us through generations of ancestors. It is natural to express appreciation for that thread of life. For a Christian, that prayer would be facilitated by an image of the Virgin Mary. For a Buddhist like myself, by an image of Kannon. The two religions enjoyed mutual respect and existed side by side all the way back in the days of the samurai. That's what the society back then was capable of. This Maria Kannon statue represents a different religion. Be that as it may, at this temple we feel a duty to honor the generations of people who believed in it.
It's a fascinating story, and one that I think will reverberate, especially now and in a lot of different places around the world, where there's so much persecution in the name of one religion or another going on.
The sacred, shielding the sacred, giving birth to new prayer.
Next, I took a boat to the Goto Islands. Across an archipelago of 140 islands, some of them tiny, hidden Christians worshipped at many sites. I'm going there to meet a man who's been looking after a church, although he himself is not a Christian. This island is called Nagasaki. To visit now, it seems like a ghost town. In the old days, this island had a population of 700. But as young people moved away in search of work, the community collapsed.
Well then, shall I show you around? In the island's heyday, this village had a population of 300 people. Over in Nokubi, there were 200 more, and another village also had 200. Before I started doing this, I worked at the fisheries cooperative on a neighboring island. I'd come over here when they were harvesting a kind of seaweed, hijiki. On these paths, they had so much hijiki laid out to dry that the whole ground was black. It used to be a lively place. They also caught abalone. There was a harbor. The island has plenty of fresh water. It's not some uninhabitable wasteland. It's a shame it ended up like this.
That's not the sort of thing you expect to see on a remote island in Japan.
It's the former Nokubi Church. In 1908, the Christians on the island clubbed together to build this church. In those days, brick buildings were still something of a rarity outside the big cities in Japan. Seventeen Christian families contributed funds to its construction. That money came out of their meager earnings. To help them save, they skipped a meal every day.
They spent decades saving up by eating just the bare minimum to get by.
The stained glass windows feature a motif of camellias, which are very common in the Goto Islands.
The local word for camellias sounds like the word for hard. A camellia has a hard kernel, and these flowers stand for firm community bonds.
So there's a lot of symbolism involved, I see.
That's right. And camellias are also part of our local identity.
When the congregation sang a hymn here, you can almost imagine the sound carrying right across the island. But in 1971, the last local Christians, 28 people from 6 families, moved away. The church fell into disrepair. The flame of Christian faith had finally been extinguished. And yet now a non-believer is looking after the church. Hirotsugu visits the island more than 20 times a month, even on days when he's not working as a tour guide. You're a Buddhist, right?
Yes, a Buddhist.
So why is this church so important to you?
When I think about how much this place meant to people, I feel I must look after it properly. Take this column. It makes me think of those who set it in place and those who brushed past it when they came to pray. These columns were so familiar to so many people. Each person who came here left a trace of memory. It may be empty of people now, but it is packed with the memories of Christians who have since died. At least, that's how I like to think about it.
The prayers of a vanished community, filling the heart of a solitary caretaker.
Even today, some people uphold the traditions of the hidden Christians, maintaining practices that were once forbidden. Yoshihiro Sakai performs a role similar to that of a priest in his community of hidden Christians. He's taking me to a sacred spot on Wakamatsujima, which is also in the Goto Islands. During the period of fiercest persecution, a dozen or more Christians fled to this island.
This place is known as the Christian Cave. Our ancestors, 4 families, 12 to 14 people in all, lived in hiding here so that they could practice their faith.
The white statue marking this sacred spot was erected about 50 years ago. Beyond the statue is the entrance to a large cave.
They'd probably kneel down somewhere around here, and they'd worship together, like this. If you go deeper into the cave, it's all rocks. They probably slept in these flatter places around here.
Well, at least they would have been protected from the elements to a degree.
The Christians lived in this cave for about 4 months. They eked out an existence drinking fresh water that trickled down the cave walls and catching fish to eat. But then one day, smoke from their cooking was spotted. They were taken away and brutally tortured. But they did survive.
Look at the wall over there. Can you see? There's a round mark, a circle.
It's impossible to know what there was.
I don't think anything was placed there. I suspect these marks were carved by Christians to draw attention to a natural shape that served as an image of the Virgin Mary. You have the round shape of a face and what could be eyes. They probably did the best they could to make some kind of sacred image. That's what I think, at least.
Yoshihiro Sakai lives here in Nakadori-jima. Christians also fled to this island, and there is still a community of 80 believers. Just like their ancestors during the ban on Christianity, they have no church buildings, and sacred duties are divided up among members of the congregation. I'm going to see some objects of worship that have been handed down in Yoshihiro's family.
Take a look at this. It was a stand-in for Jesus.
And according to family legend, this was a gift from a Jesuit missionary 450 years ago. During the centuries of secrecy, the religious practices of Japan's hidden Christians drifted far from those of Roman Catholicism.
This is basically the liturgical calendar passed down among hidden Christians. It tells you which days are for fasting from meat, which days are feasts, and so on.
In addition to Japanese characters, alphabet-like marks and other symbols create the impression of a code. The way to write these calendars was passed down in the community leader's family. In the absence of formal guidance, hidden Christians relied on this calendar to keep track of their secret rituals. But with the community in decline, Yoshihiro feels that he must tell their story. It's a privilege to see these precious items.
There is a statue of the Virgin Mary that we keep hidden from sight. I myself am allowed to look at it, but it has an awe-inspiring power. It feels as if the statue is swallowing me up. I just can't look into her eyes. That is one particular statue of the Virgin Mary that we have. The only ones who are allowed to look at it are every generation of senior leaders, people like me. And when I do, it feels as if it's taking my soul away, as if it's sucking the soul right out of my body. A Virgin Mary that no one can look at.
Clearly, in this community, faith still runs very deep. In 1981, Pope John Paul II visited Nagasaki. He made an appeal to the hidden Christians.
At that time, my father-in-law was in a leadership position among hidden Christians, a kind of priest. The Pope summoned him to Nagasaki and met with him in person. The Pope said that hidden Christians should rejoin the Roman Catholic Church, but my father-in-law told him our community would not.
In Japan now, of course, there's total freedom of religion. People can practice whatever religion they like and nobody is going to get on their case about it. But even so, the hidden Christians continue to, as it were, hide, conceal themselves from the outside world, which is perhaps a little bit surprising.
Our ancestors preserved this faith through centuries of terrible oppression. To honor them, those of us who remain will quietly continue to uphold that faith for as long as we live. We're not hoping to be understood or anything. We just want to keep the faith like our ancestors did. We'll protect our religion. Our commitment is very strong.
Lingering in the flickering shadows, whispers of an unshakable faith.
My final stop is another church in the city of Nagasaki.
Thank you. Oh, it is a smaller chapel.
Let us bow.
A burned and scarred head of a statue. 普通の少女みたいな感じじゃないですか。なんか戦争の犠牲になってしまった少女みたいな感じなんですよ。なんとなく。In August 1945, an atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. The cathedral was destroyed, and only this head of the Virgin Mary survived, a remnant that came to be treasured not only by Christians, but by all of Nagasaki's survivors.
So many had lost loved ones. They had lost homes and businesses. The people of Nagasaki must have been in despair. Where is God? They might have wondered. Where is Buddha? But in reply, this Mary seems to say, you must keep living your life.
Sightless eyes, searching the soul. Unshed tears, washing weakness away.
The story of the hidden Christians of Nagasaki is one of the lesser-known chapters of Japanese history. And it's only now, partly due to the help of non-Christians, that the details of their story are finally coming to light.